If you want to listen to Lovely completely uninterrupted, you can subscribe to our Apple Podcast channel for ad-free episodes. It's $3.99 a month, and we would really appreciate your support. Hello, and welcome back to Lovely. Happy Friday. Before we get into today's episode, can we just please take a moment to recognize history?
My friends, we have toppled a political dynasty.
We officially have our mayor, Zohran Mamdani, winning the New York elections. And I say our mayor. Keep in mind, I'm Canadian, I live in Toronto, and I've never been to New York. But I'm claiming him as my mayor. And I think that acceptance speech was just everything. I love the part when he said,
New York will remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants, powered by immigrants. And as of tonight, led by an immigrant.
oh my God, so many emotions. I was so happy. I feel like daylight savings, I've been suffering, but kind of watching him win and his acceptance speech and like the energy in New York has just been so electric. So it's, just proof that the dreamers, the workers, the people who quietly build the world that we live in are finally getting their flowers. And when I was watching him interact with his wife, I also want to take a moment to appreciate that. Every time I feel like she comes on the screen, apart from her aura that radiates through, I just think she's so fabulous. But I also learned that she is an incredible artist and she had a big hand in like the design of his campaign. I also learned that they met on Hinge, which is the most relatable thing ever. So maybe we can still have some hope in dating apps. But all in all, I think that energy of hope, of building, of belonging is exactly the energy that I want to bring into today's conversation. My guest today is a psychotherapist, a writer, and founder of Well Guide, which is a digital space for emotional wellness and mental clarity. You've probably seen my guest pop up on your For You page or on a lot of different platforms. And she was also on the Immigrantly podcast back in 2020. Her name is Israa Nasir. I'm really excited to get into why so many of us carry parental guilt, even when we think we're doing our best, how to set boundaries with family, culture, ourselves. Her book, Toxic Productivity, the truth behind that. And also, as she has a lot of experience within the intersection of digital and mental health and kind of advising us on how to use AI for emotional intelligence without letting it make you emotionally lazy. So yeah, let's get into it. Israa, welcome to Lovely for the first time. How are you?
I am good. It's so nice to be here. It's been so great to kind of see the growth of Immigrantly and all the new things that you're all doing there. And also personally, I'm happy to be here because I'm a Toronto girl too. And I'm in Toronto right now. So it's really nice to kind of chat with some hometown folks.
What are you doing in Toronto? What's happening here for you?
I am visiting my parents. They still live here. And I had my first Toronto book event over the weekend on Saturday at a really cute indie bookshop called Another Story, downtown Toronto. So that was really fun. It was incredible. My high school English teacher came. So that was really, really incredible. And then I watched Game 6, the baseball thing, the Jays and the Dodgers. It was my first baseball game ever. It was cool to be home and be part of something that was so incredible. And of course, they didn't make it as they wanted to, but I still think they made it pretty far, which is incredible.
Yeah, honestly, they played so well. You can't even get mad at them, but we always have next year. When did you move to New York?
I moved to New York in 2017. I was dating a guy who was in New York and we ended up getting married and I moved there. And in parallel to that, I was transitioning from being a full time therapist to working in digital health, which is like tech based mental health startups. And in 2017, there wasn't a whole lot happening in Toronto in that area. So I was also wanting to move to New York to pursue a career in digital health.
I want to pivot a little bit and get to learn a little bit more about you. So, one of my favorite questions that I ask all my guests would love to know what is your connection to immigrant identity and what did you kind of experience growing up that has shaped you into who you are today and how you date?
I'm a third culture kid. So it's like an interesting offshoot of being an immigrant. Are you familiar with the phrase?
No, what is a third culture kid?
So a third culture kid is somebody who has a ethnic background, but they grow up in a place that's different from that. And then in their early years, they immigrate and they become 1.5 generation in a third place. So I'm Pakistani, but I was raised in the Middle East in Saudi Arabia where we were expats. And then when I was 13, I moved to Toronto, which makes me like a 1.5 gen because even though I'm a zero point 0.5 gen, because I'm an immigrant there as well. But because I was under 16, I'm still forming my identity and my values and all of that stuff. Being a third culture kid actually amplifies this feeling of I'm not enough of one thing. Because growing up in Saudi Arabia, I was obviously not Arab. So there was no concept of assimilation there. But I was not Pakistani enough when I went back home. And then when I moved to Canada, people could not understand why I was coming from Saudi Arabia. Why was I not coming from Pakistan, which is where I'm from? I think this feeling of not really having a whole sense of belonging, you're actually split in three different ways instead of two different ways. It comes with a lot of positives in that you learn how to navigate different cultures really, really well because most third culture people are usually expats somewhere and you're living in this expat environment where there's other expats from all over the world. And so you have to kind of find your own identity in that.
Yeah, like they're already buckets of people that you've seen in front of you and you don't fit into any of those buckets. So it's like you kind of have to create your own new category. What nuances were there? I think you mentioned there was no blueprint of belonging for you, kind of had to create it for yourself. So as you were growing up, let's say, in your early 20s or mid 20s, how was that showing up when you started to date? Or when you were interacting with different people?
It's interesting. If I'm trying to think about it right now, the set of values are very different. What are my values? What's important to me? Which pieces of the culture am I accepting and which pieces am I rejecting? And I think everybody has to do that work. But I think it's also really difficult for people to sometimes accept contradiction. If you're doing a thing from your culture, there's this idea that you're going to do all of the things from your culture. Or if you reject one part of the culture as you're building your identity, then you're going to reject all of it. Right? We have a very a all or nothing mentality. But I do think that the third culture kids, because they have a middle space they've been in anyway, they learn to hold the contradiction well. So for me, as I was dating, just thinking about my values and what's important to me and what's important to me and the other person, I would think of it like a menu. I know I'll never be Pakistani enough for some Pakistani people. I know that. And I know I'm never going to be Canadian enough for some Canadians. I know that, right? So I kind of just see it as a menu and I choose the things that feel aligned to my values. And I look for that in my partners.
Absolutely. I know you mentioned that you're married. How did you meet your partner? Because what I want to ask is how you met your partner. And I wanted to know, as you were dating him, what was on the menu and what was not on the menu? And did you share the same menus?
We met the very old school way, which is a mutual friend introduced us, which very rarely happens now. And he was visiting from New York and he went to a party and someone was there who knew my sister, who knew that I was dating at that time and looking to find a partner. So it was this really roundabout, almost, a fluke of a connection, to be very honest, because the girl who told my sister, like, I've never met her. She had just heard of me because of my sister. And so it was like that. It was like a mutual connection that brought us together. And then we had a lot of similarities and interests. So we just kind of like vibed for a couple of months. And then it became something more serious. When it comes to the menu, I think like from like a cultural perspective, something that really matters to me is I was looking for someone who would not question what I do and what I engage in. Like, I don't care about how cultured you are or which practices you believe in. Like, that's your prerogative, even religiously. The value for me was that you would not question what I'm doing. As long as it doesn't like impact you, I don't want to hear like you're not brown enough or you're too brown. I think like my understanding of my culture is my own. So I was really looking for somebody who would not criticize the spectrum.
Can you give us an example of what that looked like in real life? And kind of, you talked about the contradiction too. Like, what contradiction were you facing yourself that maybe, your parents didn't agree with or people in our culture didn't agree with, but you stayed true to it and you wanted your partner to not question that contradiction and accept you for that?
Yeah. So a great example is there's some things that religiously, like I really commit myself to. So I'm Muslim background and I believe in like the charity portion of it, right? The zakat, which is like a Ramadan thing that has to be done. But I don't always fast. Well, why are you giving charity, but you don't fast? Like, I don't want to hear that. I'll go to the mosque and I'll go on Fridays if I feel like, but I'll go to a party in a rooftop and I'll go to a club, right? Like, so it's like, don't tell me that I only have to be in one place. I met people who are very divided as well as meeting people who are not. And so to me, it's just about kind of like making space for the nuance and also letting people do what they want.
I definitely can relate to the contradiction that you're talking about. And I think I've seen you talking about not wanting kids maybe at a certain point in your life. And I think that's a bold choice in South Asian culture, right? I guess I'm really curious, like, what was that first honest conversation like with your parents or with anyone that might object it?
So I have the same choice. And that's one thing that I had to talk about when I was dating. And I think it's really important. Like, if you have clarity on it, I think it's really important to talk about it up front with people. So I think it was 3 years after getting married. My mom was like, oh, like, now when are you guys having kids? And for the first couple of times, I just kind of like pushed it off where I was like, oh, like it'll happen. Oh, we'll see. And then, like, when more time passed and it was like year 4, she was like, is there a health issue? And so that's when I was like, okay, like, I should probably just tell her the truth so that she doesn't think it's like a health issue and she's worried about me. And so the first conversation I had was probably at home. I don't really remember it, to be very clear. Like, I don't have a very clear memory of the first discussion, but I do know that probably for a year and a half, my mom did not take it seriously. She just thought it was like a phase that, I'll get over it. I don't really understand. She said, oh, things change. And then she also asked a lot of questions about like, is everything okay in your marriage? But it was really like 3 years ago. We were in Turkey and we were flying from, I want to say like Istanbul to another domestic airport because we were going to go to a different city. And I decided I'm going to give her the opportunity to ask me all the questions because this is a very weird thing for her, right? Like, I knew that over the years of conversations with her, she just had never met somebody who was like me. Now, that doesn't mean that she didn't meet women who didn't want children. I think in her generation, many women had children even if they didn't want them because they didn't think they had a choice. I was nervous because it was a plane. And I was like, this could go one of two ways. Like, either we get into a huge fight on a plane that everybody hears, and we become a story for people, or the quietness of a plane will help my mom stay maintained and regulated. And so I took the risk and I opened the conversation. I said, we have 2 hours and I want you to ask me everything that you have ever wondered about me not having a child. My mom is still not on board. I've had like seasons with her where she's been able to respect my boundary, right? And I've had seasons where she's not able to do that. And then, you kind of have to set them even firmer for that season. And I think like understanding my mom's perspective helped me not be so angry and rageful at her. She's not coming from a place of, what are other people going to say? She's like, it makes me sad that you won't get this experience. It makes me sad that you don't know what. So it's coming from a lot of compassion and love.
Do you ever have guilt, or do you feel guilty that you're not able to live to the life that your mom had envisioned for you? It sounds like because you're so sure that you don't want kids, do you still get that feeling of guilt or no?
To be very honest, I don't feel that guilt. And it's not because I don't care about my mom. Like I do. I love her and we have a great relationship. It's really not my responsibility making my parents happy through my choices, when those choices are so removed from their lives. Like, I understand I've done a lot of the things that make them happy. I got a degree that was really important to them, and it was important to me too, right? I got married, that was really important to them, but it was important to me too. Me having a child is not really a part of her life. That is an intimate decision that I make with my partner. It's not about my parents. Me having a child is not about my parents. It's about my life. It's about my finances. It's about my relationship. It's about my perspective. So it's like that's where we can actually work through some of this parental guilt is, which are the pieces that we actually owe our parents and what are the pieces we don't owe them? And really doing that work, whether with a therapist, I honestly feel like a therapist is the greatest way to get to this place if you can access it. But there's some great books too about individuation for South Asians or children of immigrants. We don't know how to delineate that. So we overcorrect by cutting off our parents completely or being so obedient that we hate them. We have to learn to be like, you know what? I did owe my parents getting an education because they moved here for me, right? They left really incredible jobs to come and not have incredible jobs here. But I don't owe them the choice of profession. I owe them, hey, I'm stable. I can take care of myself. But I don't owe them my life. But for me, like when I think about like my life and what's missing from it is not something that can be filled by a child. It's really important to know your intention about why you do things. And so that's what makes me really confident is because I've never felt otherwise. And I also always believe that I would be able to live my life happily without it. But I will say one thing that I think it's very important to say because it's a huge misconception about child free people. People think that child free people hate children, and that's just not true.
Yeah. Let's play with them for 2, 3 hours and then give them back.
Yeah, or you kinda get to be like a pseudo parent to some children, right? Like, I just took out my neighbor's daughter for coffee. She's, like, 14 years old, so I just wanna check in with her. But at the same time, child-free people don't have to prove to you that they are nurturing. A lot of times, we feel like, "Oh, I have to tell I do like kids. I love animals. Like, I'm maternal. I'm nurturing." Like, nurturance is not the price you pay for being in a community. Like, I shouldn't have to prove myself.
That's so real. And I think just to kind of add my 2 cents into it, we don't have to prove to anyone else what we so wholeheartedly believe in ourselves. And I think the point that you also made is you can make strong decisions and you can experience strong feelings, but I love the part where you said it doesn't mean that you made the wrong call or choice. Similar to when, let's say, you choose the decision to walk away from someone that you know is not serving you anymore, is not right for you. You can miss that person, you can feel the heaviness of that decision, but that doesn't mean that your decision to walk away from them was wrong. You are saying so many different nuggets of advice that I think are very healing. And I know you help a lot of people through your work. And I would want everyone an opportunity to learn more about what you do and the platform that you have, Well Guide, and also your book that I see perfectly on your bookshelves. I want to learn all about it.
Well Guide started as a way to give people access to preventative emotional health care. And, being a therapist, I would often work with people, and even my clients would sometimes say it. They would say, man, if I only knew how to do this better before, like if I knew how to communicate better in relationships, I wouldn't be in this heartbreak, right? And so the thing that I realized is a lot of basic human emotional regulation knowledge was always gate kept behind therapy doors for a very long time. And so I started creating content in 2020 to help people learn a lot of things about themselves. And I still believe that like emotional awareness is one of the strongest skills that will keep you happy. So that's what Well Guide is. And I share a lot of like similar, themes and nuggets of very practical advice that you can implement in your life if it applies to you. And the book, Toxic Productivity, actually came out of an essay I wrote in 2022, I think, about how our unresolved emotions lead us into making choices that lead to burnout. So, emotions like shame, guilt, fear of missing out, fear of being left behind on this timeline pushes people to accept things that are not healthy for them. So, in a romantic setting, marrying somebody just because you feel like time is running out because all of your other friends are getting married. That's that scarcity mindset. Staying in a relationship because you don't want to be single again and go back in the dating game, right? Like, and just kind of pushing yourself to make choices that are not healthy for you. That essay then became a more in depth book on toxic productivity. And, when you think of the word productivity, you think of work, but the book is actually like the vignettes and the case study are about romance and dating, about parenting, about navigating friendships and work. Because toxic productivity is not something that happens at work. It's a mindset that we bring to our lives, which is, am I comparing well enough against what everybody else is doing? And if I'm not doing what everyone else is doing and I'm not getting those achievements, then I'm not good enough, which is a feeling I think we've all had at some point, right? And so this is like helping people understand what emotion is actually lurking in the back that they have been ignoring, which is causing this mindset.
Totally. And I feel it too. Like I am constantly trying to be productive. And when I take a moment to rest, it feels unsafe, right? And I feel like a lot of times, myself included, and I've seen my friends do it too, we're attaching our worth to how productive we are. Right. And I think I know why, because like it's years and years of conditioning to being like, well, you're only lovable when you're doing something or achieving something. I've seen that play out in like brown culture, but I'm sure other cultures have it too, right? Like you come home, you bring your report card home, you have an A, you get biryani made. If you come home with a C or an F, nope, you're going into your room, you're not doing this. So it's embedded in us to a point where it plays out in certain areas. Like, for example, if you're single and you don't have someone, then you're not like viewed as valuable to certain people. I'll tell you a very honest conversation that I had with my therapist yesterday. So, my parents live in Texas. I have a great relationship with my mom. She has changed herself. She's changed her way of thinking a lot to have a better relationship with me. My dad is lovely. He's amazing. He loves me. I'm his little girl, but he has not changed his way of thinking just like my mom has. So the last time I went, I heard him say to me, I just turned 33. He's like, "Well, you're 33. When are you getting married? What's happening?" And I'm like, "Well, dad, like I would love to get married, but I haven't found anyone." He's like, "Well, you're not going to get anyone that you want now. You're going to get people that are divorced. You're going to like pretty much told me that I'm like expired, right?" So he's really asking me to come visit him, and I'm going to go visit him in December, but I'm really dreading going because I don't want that conversation to come up again. it's so tough because it's like you can sit there and talk to your dad and being like, listen, like it is not happening right now. And I don't feel like I'm entitled to get married. If it happens, it happens. But if it doesn't, it also doesn't happen. Like some people just get lucky and maybe it's not my time right now. But it's like sometimes just falls on deaf ears. How do you explain to a parent that like I don't owe them like the choices that I made in my life to make you happy? But I feel like a lot of us are kind of like struggling with that. So what do you do? What do you say?
A lot of us are struggling with that. You are totally correct. And I know that I think that, the statement that we don't owe making our parents happy is really about which pieces of your life you need to have ownership of and where do you have like mutual respect and reciprocity as adults. I think like as we become adults, the role developmentally, like from the psychological perspective, the role of moving from young adult to adult is called individuation, which is separating your sense of self from your parents. That's when we pick our own values, what lifestyle we want, how we want to live. And marriage is one of those things. So we certainly do not owe marriage to our parents for them to be happy. We owe them respect. We owe them compassion and empathy, right? But we certainly don't owe them our choices. So if you're kind of stuck in a conversation or in a loop conversation, and this happened to me too, for sure, I think that, it depends on the day. Like if your parent is in a better mood, you can say, look, not right now. Like I'm here for a little bit. I don't want to talk about it right now. If they're not, or they're not amenable to that, you might have to become a little bit more firm. I think what's been really helpful for me is like a redirection. So kind of like redirecting to the positive things that are happening in your life so that they can see from their perspective. Like, if you're not married yet, for them, it's like your life is paused, right? Because in their value system, that's the thing that needs to happen. But sometimes, like, especially like immigrant parents, like they don't really see their children as like whole, complex, interesting beings. They're like an extension of like the cultural expectation in their head. So, like, sometimes redirecting to all of the positive things that are happening in your life to give them color, that you're not just sitting around in the dark crying yourself to sleep every day. Like you have a life that you feel good about, and this is a choice you're making right now. So sometimes that can build a bridge. And sometimes you just have to remove yourself from the conversation. And so that's why the way you set these boundaries has to be diverse because you're going to get different energy every single time. And you have to be really adaptable and creative with how you do it. And the final thing I'll say on this is if you go into the conversation with the expectation that they will agree with you and that you will shift their mindset and you have had a positive experience with your mom. So the precedence has been set that, hey, this is possible, you can shift it. But when we go into conversations demanding that the other person changes and that's the only way to coexist, then you're doing the same thing he's doing. And now you're in opposition, right? Because he's demanding you change. Children always go, and even when you're an adult, you go into a conversation with a parent like seeking validation. We all want our parents' validation, right? That's what makes you feel guilty. That's what makes you feel all these things. And when you have that in you, the desire is for their acceptance. You need to accept me for my choices. I'm not bad. Look at me. Like I'm so good, even if I don't get married, even if I don't have kids, right? We have to work on that piece. We have to be okay with our parents not accepting our choice, with them being disappointed in us, with them saying, oh, my immigration sacrifice was wasted. Like you have to be able to tolerate that discomfort, regulate your emotions, not become reactive, sit in it, release it, talk to yourself through it, talk to a friend, have an exit strategy. But the conflict happens when we don't want to accept that they don't accept us. This is the journey of releasing yourself from parental guilt.
I kind of want to go back to your work. An article that you wrote back in August. I know you are in the digital space. You talk a lot about AI and therapy. And I think the article that you wrote back was Outsourcing Emotional Labor to ChatGPT. Can you tell us about that article and why you wrote it?
Yeah, so I am a therapist by training, and my day job, not but, I'm trying to like change that language for myself. And my day job is I do clinical strategy at a digital health platform called Anise Health, which is mental health services for Asian Americans. So, what is a digital mental health platform? It's an app based mental health service, it's a telehealth mental health service. And why is it for Asian Americans? Because we're working with researchers to really create therapy modalities that are relevant to us in our culture. So I love it because it's like a merger of my therapy skills and my love for cultural adaptation. And I'm very tech forward, right? If a new technology has come out, like I'm interested in seeing how it all works out. And so naturally, in the last 2 years, AI is everywhere, right? And so obviously, like mental health is also thinking about it. And like, how do we actually use it in the positive way, in an effective way, in a safe way? The way people are using AI right now for mental health is that they're just kind of treating ChatGPT like a therapist. I know so many people who will have these conversations with ChatGPT as though they are a therapist, right? People are using it to help them navigate breakups, write text messages to their friends. And so the ChatGPT will also do some things that your therapist will not do. And I think that's the draw. That's what brings people in, right? A therapist will not write the text message with you. They will always make you write it and they'll review it, but you have to do the work. And a therapist might not always agree with you. They might push back. They might challenge you. A good therapist should always challenge you. ChatGPT will not do that. It will always agree with you. It's not coded to disagree. And so that's what brings people in to using it. And it's immediate, it's available everywhere. And a report came out this week by OpenAI that I think it's like 2.4 million users of ChatGPT are using it for suicide crisis. Think about that. That is terrifying because we know that 3 suicides have occurred because of ChatGPT's involvement. Like, it's not that, oh, it was just there. No, like, it was very much involved in the whole process of the suicide and they're all young adults. They're all under 21. And so it worries me a lot. I want to use AI for mental health services, but there's better use cases for it than one on one, unregulated talk, right? Like using ChatGPT to train therapists, using ChatGPT as a journal and then gleaning themes so that you can say, hey, like, what's a question I should ask my therapist, right? Like doing things like that is a much better use of ChatGPT for mental health services instead of trying to make you feel better. So I wrote it for that reason because I wrote it in August, and at that time a report had come out, and I'm forgetting the number, but that's what prompted it. HBR, the Harvard Business Review, had just released a report, maybe like a week or two before I wrote that essay, that the number one use case for ChatGPT in 2025 was for therapy. And so, being somebody who is a therapist and who works with therapists, right? This is something that we have to be really mindful of because people are coming into therapy saying things like, well, I read on ChatGPT that this person is XYZ. And what we're not doing is we're not actually questioning the validity of what is being said in ChatGPT. And it's not just ChatGPT, it's like Gemini, it's like whatever, right? So I just don't think it's like a safe use of the service.
I agree. And I think we're so heavily reliant on AI platforms. It's making me dumber. Okay. I feel like sometimes I'm in a meeting and I'm like, okay, well, think. But I'm so used to leaning on ChatGPT to come up with these big ideas to kind of execute things that when it's happening in real time, we're losing the muscle of thinking quickly on our feet. It's really dangerous. It's really scary. So I'm glad that you're bringing that awareness to people. So where do we go from here?
So I'll give a very quick example about me and how I use it. I send out a newsletter twice a month. It's like very robust. It's like one of the essays that you just mentioned, the outsourcing emotions to ChatGPT. Now, I could use ChatGPT to write the whole newsletter. Like I could do that, right? And then what would happen is I would lose the skill of critical thinking, connecting thoughts together, and writing. But writing is an important value for me because my job requires me to write, right? Like, and so what do I do? To be efficient, because time is finite, I asked ChatGPT to give me access to research papers. So while I used to spend 30 minutes on Google searching for research papers that I know exist that support the hypothesis I'm making, now ChatGPT can give it to me in 2 minutes. Literally, it can just give me a list of academic journals that are about a certain thing that I know that I want to expand on. It can give me access to reading some of them that are not in paywalls. So that's been really helpful, where I can say, find me the free version of this study. And it can give me that so I can read it, right? I can ask it to give me movie recommendations or TED Talks, right? That I can pull in. And that takes away like 40, 50 minutes of work for me. So I can actually streamline writing the prose of the content myself. And so in that way, you have to be intentional about how you use it. And for adults, I will say it's very easy to get it to read your emails, respond to work emails, and all that stuff. But I would say keep some things to yourself.
I think more and more people need to be reminded of this. Like, have it help you enhance your final output, not have it do your final output. But as we get deeper and deeper into this world of AI, like now agentic AI is out. So I can't even imagine like how we're outsourcing so many more tasks that require us to look at it. But I have learned so much from you today, and I really, really appreciate the conversation. I know as we come to a close, I'm very curious to ask you this next question. It was left by our last guest that was on the podcast. Her name is Aubrey, and she wanted to ask you, what are you currently hiding from and why?
Damn. Okay. I think if I am candid, I am hiding from, like, I know I'm putting a lot of unrealistic pressure on myself to close out the year. Like I have like a certain goal in mind around the book, and it's completely unrealistic. I've already surpassed the metrics for like, a book coming out, but I have this image in my head of what I want the year end to, year one of book to look a certain way. And I know that I'm putting a lot of undue pressure on myself, and I'm definitely a little overwhelmed. I'm overcommitted. I am doing a lot to meet this, but there is simply no good reason that I need to meet it. I know this, and I'm hiding from that. I'm like, I don't want to hear this rational thing. I have a vision. It needs to be completed. And so over the last week and a half, I've actually been confronted with this. Yeah, that's something I'm hiding from. Unrealistic expectations.
And then I guess, what question would you like to leave for my next guest?
I would love to know and have them think about the intergenerational resilience that they have inherited from their like ancestors, parents, grandparents. We talk a lot about intergenerational trauma, which is so real, but intergenerational resilience is equally as important to talk about. So I would love to hear that.
Yeah, I think that's such a unique question, and also a different perspective, because we kind of always focus on the negative, but what is the positive that you've gained from it? So yeah, I'm really, really excited to get into that. This has been a great conversation, Israa. If people want to see more of your content and learn more about your book and all your work, where can they find you?
My website is the hub of it all. It's israhnasir.com. So there's a book page. If you're looking for a speaker for your corporate workshops and wellness workshops, there's a speaker page. I do a lot of corporate speaking. And then you can also connect to my Instagram through my website if you want to send me a DM or something. I'm always happy to chat with people.
Amazing. And any final words you want to leave our listeners?
I think that the journey of finding your own values is uniquely your own. So take your time with it, enjoy it, give yourself grace. And it's a really beautiful process becoming who you are. I think we rush through it, but take your time to really build the person you want to be so that you can build a life that you're in love with.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. So that was my conversation with Israa. And honestly, I feel like I can let out a big exhale after that. I feel like I'm definitely going to take some of those things that she mentioned and apply to my conversation with my dad in December. I think Israa, she's very sure of who she is as a person, what she wants in life that makes her happy. And I think a lot of times we're faced with those moments in our life and the hard decisions that we have to make. But to remind yourself that, once you have a very, very strong understanding of who you are as a person, you know what your values are, you know what fulfills you in life, you're going to have to make decisions and you're going to have consequences of those decisions. And when you sit through those consequences, you might feel heaviness or you might feel some guilt. But a reminder is that just because you're feeling the heaviness of a decision that you made, it's not necessarily a wrong decision that you made. Thank you so much, as always, for listening. And thank you to Israa for sharing her heart. And as always, stay curious, stay soft, and stay lovely.
Lovely is an Immigrantly media production. This episode was produced by Sadia Khan and Shay Yu, written by me, Mahek. Music, sound design, and editing by Lou Raskin. Other music is by Epidemic Sound. Tune in every Friday for more Lovely.